Here's the life story of Rustem Enverovich Umerov, the current Ukrainian Minister of Defense, a prominent Crimean Tatar leader, businessman, and seasoned negotiator. Early life and family roots of Rustem Umerov. Full name: Rustem Enverovich Umerov. Date of birth: April 19th, 1982. Place of birth: Samarkand, Uzbek Soviet Socialist Republic, Uzbek SSR, USSR exile, and Crimean Tatar heritage. Rustem Umerov was born into a family of Crimean Tatars, an indigenous Turkic people of the Crimean Peninsula. His family had been deported from Crimea in 1944 under Soviet leader Joseph Stalin during the forced mass exile of Crimean Tatars to Central Asia. They were falsely accused of collaborating with the Nazis during World War II. Like many others, Umerov's family ended up in Samarkand, Uzbekistan, where Rustem was born and spent his early childhood. Return to Crimea. When the Soviet Union began to collapse and restrictions eased, many Crimean Tatars began returning to their homeland. In the early 1990s, when Rustem was around 9 years old, his family moved back to Crimea, where he would spend the rest of his formative years. Family values. His upbringing was deeply influenced by the legacy of exile and resistance that marked Crimean Tatar identity. His family, like many in the community, maintained strong cultural and religious values. They had dedication to preserving their language and a deep longing for justice and return. This experience of being born in exile and returning home would later shape his political activism and commitment to defending Ukraine's territorial integrity and the rights of the Crimean Tatar people. Education and early leadership of Rustem Umerov. Academic background: secondary schooling. Rustem Umerov attended a Crimean boarding school for gifted children, where he excelled in academics and languages. He took part in the Future Leaders Exchange Flex program, a U.S. State Department initiative. As part of the program, he spent a year in Pennsylvania during high school, where he gained early exposure to Western educational and cultural values. Higher education. Umerov pursued his university education in Kyiv, Ukraine's capital. Bachelor's degree in economics, master's degree in finance, both from the National Academy of Management in Kyiv. He also studied information technology at the Kyiv Polytechnic Institute, one of Ukraine's top technical universities. Multilingual abilities. Rustem Umerov is a polyglot, fluent in Ukrainian, Russian, Crimean Tatar, English, Turkish, some Arabic. This linguistic versatility became a key asset in his diplomatic and negotiation roles, enabling him to communicate directly with a broad range of international stakeholders. Early leadership and community involvement. Youth leadership. Umerov began engaging with Crimean Tatar community organizations from a young age. His work reflected a deep sense of responsibility to his people's struggle for rights and recognition. Mentorship. He became a long-time advisor to Mustafa Dzhemilev, a legendary Crimean Tatar leader and Soviet dissident, starting in the early 2000s. Dzhemilev was one of the foremost figures advocating for the Crimean Tatars' return and justice. Civic engagement. Co-founded various cultural and civic groups aimed at preserving Crimean Tatar identity and promoting political advocacy. Bizim Kırım, Our Crimea, focused on public diplomacy and historical memory. Crimean Development Fund promoted education, infrastructure, and cultural projects. Actively participated in the Kurultai, National Congress of Crimean Tatars. These formative experiences not only sharpened his leadership and organizational skills, but also helped Umerov establish a reputation as a principled, globally minded, and culturally rooted leader, traits that continue to define his political career. Would you like to continue with his business career or move directly to his political rise? Business and Philanthropy of Rustem Umerov Business Career 1. Early Corporate Roles. From 2004 to 2010, Rustem Umerov held key managerial roles at LifeCell, one of Ukraine's leading mobile telecom operators, a subsidiary of Turkcell, Turkey. During this time, he gained substantial experience in telecommunications, strategic partnerships, and technology management. Founding of Astem Group. In 2013, Umerov co-founded Astem Investment Group, a Kyiv-based firm that operates across several more sectors: telecommunications, information technology, infrastructure, development, energy. The group has focused on innovative and high-impact investment projects aimed at modernizing Ukraine's infrastructure and digital capacity. 3. Astem Foundation. He also established the Astem Foundation, the group's philanthropic arm. Its mission focuses on educational opportunities for talented Ukrainian youth, sponsorship of international leadership training programs, including at associated institutions like Stanford. Promoting social entrepreneurship and ethical leadership, Umerov used the foundation to bridge private sector capital with social good, particularly in education, innovation, and national development, cultural and religious philanthropy, Crimean Tatar heritage projects. A significant portion of his philanthropic work supports Crimean Tatar cultural preservation and historical justice. Mosque restoration. Umerov funded the restoration of the Orta Jami Mosque in Bakhchisarai, one of the oldest and most culturally important mosques in Crimea. The project was symbolic of his dedication to preserving Crimean Tatar identity, even amid Russian occupation. Support for displaced Tatars. After Russia's 2014 annexation of Crimea, many Crimean Tatars were displaced. Umerov played a behind-the-scenes role in supporting humanitarian relief and integration programs for internally displaced persons, IDPs, global outreach and reputation. Through his dual identity as a businessman and activist, Umerov became a well-respected figure in both Western and Muslim-majority countries. His ability to engage with investors, civil society, and foreign governments helped him build strategic alliances that would later support his political and diplomatic roles. Rustem Umerov's business and philanthropic efforts were not just about profit or charity. They were deeply tied to his vision for a modern, sovereign Ukraine, rooted in diversity, innovation, and human rights. Would you like to explore his political activism next, or go straight into his government career? Political and community activism of Rustem Umerov. Rustem Umerov's political journey is deeply rooted in his Crimean Tatar identity, a legacy of resistance and a strong sense of justice. Long before he held public office, Umerov was already a respected civic leader and human rights advocate within both the Crimean Tatar community and broader Ukrainian society. Crimean Tatar National Movement 1. Early activism, 2000s. Umerov began working closely with Mustafa Dzhemilev, the legendary Soviet-era dissident and leader of the Mejlis, the self-governing body of Crimean Tatars. Umerov served as Dzhemilev's advisor and strategic coordinator for over 20 years. He was elected as a delegate to the Kurultai, the National Congress of Crimean Tatars, and later served in various leadership roles in community organizations. 2. NGO work, co-founded several key Crimean Tatar civic organizations, including Bizim Kurum, Our Crimea, focused on public diplomacy, historical memory, and cultural revival. Zemlyachestwo Crimean Tatars of Kyiv, a diaspora support group. Crimean Development Fund, supported infrastructure, culture, and education for Crimean Tatar communities. Advocacy after Crimea's annexation, 2014. 1. Voice for de-occupation after Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014. Umerov became one of Ukraine's leading voices advocating for the de-occupation of Crimea. He actively promoted international awareness of human rights abuses against Crimean Tatars under Russian rule. Political prisoner support. Umerov helped negotiate the release of Crimean Tatar political prisoners. A notable example is his role in the 2017 release of Ilmi Umerov and Akhtemchi Goz, both Mejlis leaders who had been imprisoned by Russia. 3. International outreach. Participated in global forums and bilateral meetings to raise the plight of Crimean Tatars and lobby for stronger international sanctions against Russia. Bridge between communities. Umerov has always positioned himself as a connector between Ukrainian and Crimean Tatar narratives of nationhood, between Islamic and Western allies of Ukraine, between grassroots activism and state-level policy-making. The Crimea platform Umerov was a co-organizer and key strategist behind the launch of the Crimea Platform, an international initiative aimed at consolidating diplomatic efforts for the de-occupation of Crimea, coordinating global sanctions, promoting human rights, and restoration of Crimean Tatar self-governance. Summary. Before ever entering Parliament or the Defense Ministry, Rustem Umerov had already built diplomatic bridges, fought for justice, and mobilized the Crimean Tatar community within and beyond Ukraine. His activism was not just symbolic. It achieved real-world outcomes in prisoner releases, international advocacy, and the long-term goal of Crimea's return to Ukraine. Government career of Rustem Umerov. Rustem Umerov's government service reflects a steady rise from civic activism to high-level national leadership. His political career has centered on human rights, strategic reform, and national defense, especially in the context of Russia's aggression against Ukraine. Election to Parliament, 2019. In July 2019, Umerov was elected as a member of the Verkhovna Rada, Ukraine's parliament, with the reformist Holos Voice party. He became a respected voice in Ukraine's pro-European, anti-corruption political bloc, and was one of the few Crimean Tatars in national office, secretary of the Committee on Human Rights, De-occupation, and Reintegration of Temporarily Occupied Territories.